Hello, I am Dylan Rosenblatt, the Governor's Office reporter for the Arizona Capitol Times, and for this week's Q&A, I am joined by Kris Mayes, who has been kind of around the Arizona Capitol for a while. Used to be a Arizona Corporation Commissioner. She was once a reporter for the Arizona Republic. She's now over at ASU. Hi, Kris. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, Dylan. It's good to be here.
So what exactly do you do for ASU right now, by the way?
So I am a professor of utility law and energy policy at Arizona State University, and I run a couple of energy related programs, one called the Energy Policy Innovation Council and another called the Utility of the Future Center. So working on clean energy policy and how we navigate this transition that we're seeing between coal and carbon energy and clean energy.
Okay. So I mean, still kind of in the vein of a lot of what the Corporation Commission has to talk
Yeah,
about and deal with,
absolutely.
which is what brings me to want to have you on for this Q&A this week. Is just the other day, the Arizona Corporation Commission held its first and only debate for this election cycle. 6 people were running, 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats, 3 will get elected. I'm curious, just generally, like, what did you think of the debate from Wednesday?
Well, I think you saw the candidates really sort of reiterate and stake out the positions that they've taken throughout the entire campaign. The 3 Democrats running for the commission are clearly pro clean energy, pro solar, pro renewables, pro energy efficiency. They want to see the state expand our current renewable energy standard, which is at 15% to at least 50%, perhaps beyond, and for the state to go to 100% carbon-free energy. They are not in favor of deregulating the utilities, at least it doesn't certainly look that way. And then on the other side of the aisle, you've got the Republicans who, at least one of whom seemed still skeptical that climate change is actually happening, which I find remarkable in this day and age, that anyone, even a Republican, would take that position. But that's how it sounded anyway. And didn't voice a lot of support for clean energy, and certainly the Republicans didn't seem like they were interested in expanding the requirements that the utilities do more clean energy going forward. I mean, I would say all of the candidates appeared poised to be pretty tough on the utilities. And that's probably a hangover of a decade of, frankly, bad behavior by APS.
So I do want to touch on what you brought up with one of the candidates, Jim O'Connor, one of the Republican candidates who actually ran as a write-in in the primary and got well over the minimum amount of votes that he needed to qualify for the November election. He brought up that he's not convinced that man-made climate change is real, which I think the overwhelming reaction was surprised by that answer. I'm curious, you touched on it a little bit, but what does that mean for someone who's trying to run for the Corporation Commission to have that point of view?
Well, I think it's pretty troubling, to be honest with you, Dylan, because the overwhelming science demonstrates that climate change is man-made, and that we have to start taking dramatic steps to staunch the effects of climate change and to get us back to the point where we're not going to be seeing dramatic and extreme events like wildfires in the West and the cooling of or the warming of our northern climates, sea level rise. I mean, all of these things are going to require pretty dramatic and concerted efforts by public utility commissions like the Arizona Corporation Commission across the country, and then also at the federal level. And I don't know, I have to tell you, as you know, I'm a former Republican. I'm now a Democrat, but I served 2 terms as a Republican commissioner. And I mean, even the commissioner and Republican commissioners I served with believed that climate was man-made. So to see Jim O'Connor take this wildly strange position that really is coming from Donald Trump. I mean, let's face it, Donald Trump said similar things during the debate the other night with Joe Biden. So I guess, I don't know if Jim O'Connor is just parroting Donald Trump, but it's difficult to hear as a former Republican. It's also just, not even in line with what the utilities believe. The CEO of APS, Jeff Goldner, himself has made it clear that he believes climate change is a problem, and he's actually made it a tenet of his tenure, his new tenure as the head of APS, to combat climate change. So he's going to have a tough time if any of these Republicans get elected and they're constantly raising what is essentially a lie or an untruth. And I think the then further problem associated with having that view is that it leads those folks to not support the implementation of renewable energy. And here's the problem for ratepayers if that's the case. Renewable energy is the least cost resource. So not only does it help combat climate change, we've actually gotten it to the point where solar energy is the most cost-effective resource for consumers. So if these Republicans are going to oppose the very thing that would help consumers and help alleviate people's pocketbooks and reduce bills, that seems to me to be a problem. And there's a lot of education that needs to happen there.
So you yourself are a Republican turned Democrat, so is one of the candidates this year who you actually did serve on the Corporation Commission with. That's Bill Mundell, who served for 2 terms on the commission as a Republican. I'm curious, and I'm going to make you go back in time a little bit, but I'm curious what it was like to work with Mr. Mundell on the commission and seeing him run again. I know he tried in 2018 to make it out of the primary, but now he's on there. Seems like he's one of the top contenders at this point.
I hope so. I'll be honest with you. I'm a Bill Mundell supporter, and it was a delight to work with Bill Mundell. I think that Arizona would be really fortunate if he made it back onto the commission. And here's why. I think the qualities that you want in a corporation commissioner are someone who's got sort of a judicial nature, someone who's deliberative, who will be fair to everyone who comes before him or her. That's Mundell. I found him, he's a former judge as well. He served as a judge before being a corporation commissioner. You also want someone with a public service mindset and who believes in transparency and access to the public. So I think Bill Mundell, as I did, was very, very adamant that we get out of the Corporation Commission and go do public meetings, as many as possible, to hear what people were thinking about these proposals, whether it was a rate increase proposal by a utility or an increase to the renewable energy standard or whatever it was. That's Bill Mundell. And then, I just think that he's right on the positions. So Arizona would not have a renewable energy standard today if it weren't for Bill Mundell. He and I were the primary architects of that law. That law has been the primary mechanism by which we have been doing solar in Arizona. If it weren't for the renewable energy standard and Bill Mundell, our utilities would be doing no solar energy. They're not doing enough as it is right now. And I think Bill believes we should take that standard to 50%, as do the other Democrats running, Anna Tovar and Shay Stanfield. But Bill Mundell also was responsible with me for writing and putting forward the net metering laws of Arizona, which require our utilities to purchase at a retail rate the energy that we produce from our solar systems on a rooftop and then sell back to the utility or put back on the grid. As you know, there were the solar wars in the last decade to try to destroy that policy. The policy has been changed, but we still have a value of solar export rate that is related to the net metering policy that Bill Mundell passed with me.
So one final question about the debate, and then we can move on to the Corporation Commission election that's going to come up, which is, still debate-esque, but not necessarily who you plan to support or who you're going to vote for if you know yet. But I'm curious, what three candidates do you think really set themselves up above the rest of them from this debate? Like, who do you think you said all of them were poised. Which three did you at the end of the debate think, okay, like these three were the best at this moment?
I really thought that Bill Mundell, Anna Tovar, and Shea Stanfield did, by virtue of their positions on the issues. But I will say also that Leah Marquez Peterson, who is one of the Republicans running, has done some things during her time on the commission that are worthy of noting. I think she's wrong in the fact that she still won't support increasing the renewable energy standard. She doesn't seem to want to put those kinds of requirements on the utilities. And I think it's important to remember that these commissioners are regulators, and that means you regulate. And that means you sometimes have to actually tell the utilities where to go and what to do and when to do it. That's what our founding fathers wanted. Arizona is interesting, Dylan, in the sense that it is one of only 2 states in the entire country that have both an elected constitution that is also lodged in an elected commission that's also lodged in the Constitution. And that means that most Public Utility Commission experts believe that Arizona actually has the most powerful Public Utility Commission, the Corporation Commission, in the country. And our founding fathers back in 1912 were very deliberate about setting up the Corporation Commission as a separate branch of government, the 4th branch of government. And when you read the minutes of the Constitution, you notice that they spent as much, if not more time, crafting the Corporation Commission than they did the judiciary, the executive branch, the legislature, all that other stuff that you cover during your days as a reporter. So it's an important election, and our founding fathers would want Arizonans to really pay attention to this one.
So one of the big issues, if not the biggest issue, is obviously how APS and other utilities will play into this election, if they're going to play into this election. I know that APS, the CEO, have already committed, like, we're not going to spend on these candidates. The Corporation Commission has to do a lot of different things besides just regulate these utilities. I'm curious, what things should voters, like, you don't have to go into like specific details, but like, what things do you think voters should know that these commissioners also have to do that is important to the job?
Well, absolutely, and that's a great question, Dylan. I would say, this commission has probably the broadest portfolio of duties of any public utility commission in the country. So they regulate pipeline safety, railroad safety, they prosecute civil securities fraud, and they're the place you go whenever you want to form a new business, you incorporate at the Corporation Commission. And so that means, every time you cross a railroad crossing, it's the commission staff that decides whether that crossing is safe and make sure that it is. We have a number of very high volume gasoline and natural gas pipelines crisscrossing Arizona. The Corporation Commission makes sure those are safe. If there's a scam going on in securities, the Corporation Commission is responsible for trying to shut it down and prosecute those who engage in those kinds of frauds. And then, we've got to make sure we have a very fluid and efficient process for forming a business in Arizona. So there's a lot besides regulating the utilities that they do. And Dylan, most of the attention gets paid to companies like APS and TEP and the electric utilities, and Southwest Gas too. but the commission also regulates 350 private water utilities.
Mm-hmm.
So Arizona has more water companies, water utilities than any other state in the country. So it's quite the portfolio that they have. And they impact our lives from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed. There is no other branch of government, I think, that is more impactful on our lives, and I include the governorship and the legislature, than the Corporation Commission.
One of the referendums that came up during the legislative session this past year that didn't go anywhere, partly because it failed in one chamber, but another part because of the current pandemic that's been going on since March, really, was to change the Corporation Commission from being elected positions to being appointed positions. Now, given everything that you just said, and given the fact that you served on this very commission, with how important this commission is in the state of Arizona compared to not even just other branches, but other states, as you were just talking about, do you think that these positions should be elected, or do you think they would be better off being appointed by different members of different political parties throughout the state?
So I really believe that we should retain our elected commissioners. It's something that we've had in the state for more than 100 years. It is something that I believe still holds value for the people of Arizona, and I don't want to take that power away from the people of Arizona. So I would, and here's the problem with giving it to the governor. I think that if you give this appointment to the governor, you basically are making it easier for utilities like APS and TEP to have political influence over the appointments, because all they have to do then is give money to one person's campaign, and that's the whoever's running for governor. And then it's even harder to track, right, than it is if you're tracking, a utility that's maybe doing an IE for the Corporation Commission. That said, I think we should outlaw the ability of utilities to spend any money at all ever again on Corporation Commission races. And I think that that's something that Bill Mundell and Anna Tovar and Shea Stanfield and Sandra Kennedy, who's on the commission now, would probably do, and I would hope that they would do it, is to immediately pass a regulation that bans the ability of APS to ever do that again. Now, the new APS CEO, Jeff Goldner, has promised to never do it again, but there's no guarantee that Jeff Goldner is going to be the CEO for life, and he's probably not going to be. And, who knows what the next CEO does. We know what the last CEO did, and the last CEO wrecked the Corporation Commission. Don Brandt wrecked the commission, and he destroyed the ability of the commission to act in the public interest, to be trusted by the people of Arizona, and really set Arizona back by a decade. In the last decade, all of our surrounding states, California, Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado, have all gone to 100% clean energy, and we're still stuck at 15%, Dylan. And that's because APS, under the leadership of the last CEO, decided that somehow it would be a good idea to spend tens of millions of dollars to elect Corporation Commission candidates that would support the very utility they're supposed to regulate, and tens of millions more to oppose Prop 127, and then turn around 2 years later after Prop 127, which would have taken us to 50%, and have the utility now support 50%. So if the utilities were looking like they were going to continue to spend that kind of money on elections, I might say, yeah, we should move to an appointed commission. I don't think that that's the case, and I want to try, if at all possible, to retain that vote for the people of Arizona.
Moving on, I mentioned at the beginning when I was introducing you that you used to be a reporter for the Arizona Republic. I'm curious now that you were a successfully elected official, you were a reporter, which side did you prefer to be on?
um, Gosh, that's a hard question because those are the two jobs I've loved most in my life. Um, I'll be honest, I loved being a reporter probably more than any other job in my entire life. And it was so much fun. And it was, and I love writing. I love asking questions. I love what you get to do every day. I will say being a corporation commissioner was the greatest honor of my life. And I probably, hopefully when I leave this world, people will say that's where she did the most good. And I think that's the beauty of the Corporation Commission, is that you can do so much good for the people of Arizona from that perch. And that's why this election is so important. Every Corporation Commission election is so important in my mind, but this one in particular, with 3 seats up at this moment in history, with climate change challenging us so much, with utility bills being such a problem for so many people dealing with this economic depression that we're in, and with the opportunity to make Arizona a solar energy leader in America, this election in particular is probably the biggest one in the history of the Corporation Commission.
Plus, given all the drama that's happened in the past several months that myself and other reporters have been covering, with 6 Republicans were trying for the primary and all but 2 got knocked off because of signatures and other reasons that I don't need to reiterate now. So it's been a crazy cycle where it seemed like a Democrat was almost guaranteed to have a seat if O'Connor wasn't able to get enough write-in votes. And as I've reported, it's possible the Corporation Commission flips from a 4-1 Republican advantage to a 3-2 or even a 4-1 if all 3 Democrats somehow win in November. I'm curious, would you ever run again for the Corporation Commission?
Well, I guess you never say never, but I've sort of been there, done that. I don't know, but I will. Yeah, I would say, I really do believe that there is no more important statewide office than the Corporation Commission. So yeah, maybe someday I'll do that again. But anybody who gets elected to this job pretty quickly knows what an honor it is and what an amazing job it is. And it's just so important for people to run for this office and win this office who have the heart of a public servant, because that's really what it's all about.
And then just last question for you, just generally, obviously there's a lot of things to pay attention to on the November ballot, from president to Senate to all the legislative seats that are potentially flip from Republican to Democrat or vice versa. What other race besides the Corporation Commission are you really paying attention to that you think is important and that others should be paying attention to as well?
Prop 208. So I'm a mom now, and I believe that there's probably no more important proposition than we've had in the last 30 years. And we have got to do more to support our public schools, our teachers, our students. Arizona should not be last in the country for per pupil spending, or next to last in the country for teacher salaries and spending. And so I think I hope it passes. I think it looks like it's doing really well despite the opposition of the chamber. And let me just say this. I'll be looking, and I'm sure you will be looking as well, closely at the spending reports and contribution reports for the opposition to Prop 208, including though obviously the chamber is behind that, the opposition to education funding. And I certainly hope there are no utilities that are contributing to that anti-Prop 208 effort. I have made it clear personally to executives at APS and elsewhere that, I feel it would be totally inappropriate for them to get involved in that. I certainly hope they don't land on that list or are on that list. You know, I can't believe that the business community is spending the kind of money that they are to undermine our public education system, because the one thing we need in this state to become competitive with our surrounding states and to attract jobs and businesses and to support small businesses is to have a world-class education system. And so we need Prop 208 to pass, and then we have a lot more work to do on top of that.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Kris. I appreciate you joining me for this Q&A.
Thanks, Dylan.